This isn't another fishing show. This is another fishing show.
All right, well, hello everybody. It is Pete and Greg from Another Fishing Show, and we are doing a remote tonight, just for the heck of it. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and Greg, why don't you tell everybody where you're at? It looks like you're in some sort of terrible situation.
Well, I am in a remote village in Louisiana, which is honestly, it's kind of like a third world country.
I was just commenting on how your backdrop really exposes the glamour of being a cameraman on the road following a bass tour, right? Are you down there for a bass?
Yeah, I'm filming for Major League Fishing. So I've been down here for a week, and yeah, I'm in Louisiana.
Well, is it warm at least? Because we just got 5 more inches tonight.
Yeah, my wife is in a severe depression because of that. So in Minnesota standards, it's warm. It got up to actually got up to the high 50s, I'd say. But
oh, that sounds
awesome. It's moist down here.
Right.
So it's actually kind of cold, believe it or not, because it's high humidity down here.
Right.
They've got a ton of rain. In fact, the Mississippi is right out here. It's like 2,000 feet that way, and it's really high. They've got a ton of rain here. So.
Well, they just wait. We're going to be sending them 4 feet of snow, melt water. So
yeah.
That hotel is going to be underwater in about 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we posted. It's actually when this video that we're doing right now airs. It's going to be about a week ago.
Right.
We posted an interview I did with Darren Troseth. And Darren is now the new Minnesota catch and release record holder for lake sturgeon. And
my favorite way to put that is my favorite way to put that is it is the largest fish on record ever been caught in Minnesota.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah. But it's also very controversial.
What isn't these days? Because the internet has created any grand moment that turns into a giant bleep storm. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And we're there to take full advantage of it.
We're here to observe and interject.
So, what was most interesting at first to me was the fact of the media attention that Darren was getting for catching this massive sturgeon, this lake sturgeon, estimated to be about 120 pounds.
It's crazy.
He caught it through the ice.
Right.
Yeah. And so it got, he submitted it for a state record, and it just snowballed for him. And so he got mainstream media attention. Fox News, Reuters, the New York Post, Weather Channel.
BBC.
It just absolutely... the BBC.
He made it across the ocean.
Yeah. So worldwide, baby. And we were interested to do an interview with Darren, because that's very interesting. I don't know that I've ever heard of a fishing story just blowing up like that. At least not a Minnesota fishing story. Have you?
Right. Never. I mean, all these things are all relative because it's kind of a new world. So Darren's a guy that's kind of out there and films while he's fishing, and so things explode at different speeds these days, and it seems like these news companies are looking for filler. They love this kind of stuff, and Minnesota and fish is kind of a story in itself, but beyond all that, it really is a crazy story with a giant fish. And we knew Darren, and you guys kind of discussed it in the interview. We knew him sort of from the outside, like we were familiar with some of his videos. You had seen him catfishing through the ice, and we loved the idea of that. And he'd given me some cat advice over the web, but we didn't know Darren. Our first conversation with him was essentially the interview that you did with him, right?
Right. Yeah.
So
yeah. So he was great to talk with. I liked Darren. But one of the things that was, very a twist to this record is that he did a YouTube video of him catching this sturgeon. But the twist to all this is that when the fish comes up through the hole, it's hooked outside of the mouth. And so when people saw the video, and they also learned that he's now the new state record holder for the biggest fish in Minnesota that's ever been caught, right? As you said, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, there's never been a bigger fish on record.
Many people, not all, there's been a lot of positive publicity, but there were many people that lost their minds about it.
Right. And a lot of this, and I think some of this comes from, there seems to be like a competition for just online in general, like guys that are successful at catching fish. And this is the weird part of social media. Like, guys that are successful at catching fish are mad at other guys that are successful at catching fish, especially when they don't seem to do it the right way. And there's not really a right way. There's just it used to be you just go fishing, like, and we're guilty of this too, because here we are, like putting ourselves out there. But it really needs to be observed, from the outside looking in. It's fascinating.
It does. And listen, we're not going to sit here and act like we're there's not a bit of hypocrisy here on our end.
Right. Oh yeah, no, there's two hypocrites on this feed right now.
But the here's the thing, okay? There's such debate about this. And Darren's even asked me, someone asked me on Facebook, they said, because in the interview, I said that a lot of it has to do with envy. People are envious of Darren. And it actually was a YouTube comment. Someone was kind of upset that I used the term envy, that it wasn't about envy. It's about people believing that a record should, the fish should be hooked in the mouth.
Right.
And
just
Darren
to be clear,
argues that
I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you haven't seen the video yet, please watch the interview Greg did with Detro. It's on our page, or it's on our channel rather. But so he catches this fish, and when it comes out of the water, the hook is not necessarily in the mouth. But Darren's argument was, well, it was in the mouth, but when they were wrestling it through this hole, they had to drill like 2 or 3 extra holes to get the fish out. That the hook at some point moved, which is completely plausible. Like, there's so much chaos while you're trying to get a fish through the ice, and they're giant fish and they're rubbing against. So, it completely could have happened. And what complicated everything is that when it comes out of the water, there's a hook in the wrong spot, and then there's a cut in the film, which I don't know if has ever been explained. I don't know if you two talked about it, but it created all this hysteria and mystery and sort of left the door open. And it really reminds me of like almost like a golf tournament when there's these ridiculous rule situations, and some guys are purists and other guys are just like, can we just play golf? You know what I mean? Like, so, or those dads at the basketball game that go over the top with their kid out there playing, the 7th grader, and he's that one dad in the gym that's going nuts. Like, those guys are online watching every single thing you do. And you and me see some of this just when we post videos in general. People find you and start pressing your buttons because that's their thing. Like, they just sit at home and press buttons. They're called trolls. Like, and I find it amusing because I don't ever take anything seriously, but when the heat is on you in a spotlight like Darren had on him, I can understand why the pressure would somehow get to him and be like, my God, this is supposed to be my great moment, and it's turned into a nasty battle. Some people are really supportive, but it feels like the only ones you notice are the awful ones,
Right, and Darren and I talked about that. Negative comments are the ones that really stick with you more than the positive ones, unfortunately. I would give to Darren a piece of advice, and I say this because I legitimately, genuinely, I like the guy. I would say that, if it bothers him as much as it does, he needs to lay off the social media more.
Right.
But I can tell he likes social media.
Right.
But boy, when you have the fish is controversial. Okay.
Right.
So when you have something like that happen, it's probably not good for his mental health.
No, and part of what Darren's thing is, and the reason I was always a fan of his, he always seemed to be pushing for the right causes in fishing, like literally dealing with the rules and dealing with DNR and pushing for 2 lines for catfishermen and literally going to the Capitol and like talking to guys and trying to help bills get passed. Like, you couldn't be more on the level with literally dealing with laws, trying to get them changed for the better, but always taking opinions from everybody. He always seemed to he was willing to listen to other people's opinions. Well, is this a bad thing? This is a good thing? He's like, I don't know. Let's just get it out there and find out, because it could be something we can get some support behind. So the other part of that was he was a guy working closely with the DNR, probably knew a lot of the people that were involved in certifying his situation, and he's...
Well, and that's part of the rub with a lot of people.
Right.
There's a conspiracy theory there that they let things slide. So that's tweaking some people,
Yeah, well, yeah.
I got to ask you this, okay? Darren's asked me this. He asked me this today on our YouTube channel and in the comments. He said, what would you do? Because I personally...
This is the question.
I don't think I would have submitted it.
No, see, okay. I came into this knowing that you left that comment somewhere, and I really I could not believe this when I read it. So here's where I'm coming from, because you're looking for my opinion, right?
Yes.
So so here we are. We have a we have a YouTube channel we're trying to get attention for. Like, who doesn't these days? In a podcast, everyone's got a podcast. I read today when you get an apartment in New York now, most apartment buildings have a soundproof podcast room the whole building can use, because everybody's got a podcast. But anyway, so everyone's looking for attention, and so if I'm in the situation, right, and there's kind of 2 ways to present this question. So if you pulled that fish out of the ice, and I'm going to ask you this, if you pulled that fish out of the ice, and you could see that the hook was in the right spot, the legal correct spot, but when you eventually got the fish out of the water, it was in the wrong spot. Like, what's the legality on that? Like, at what point have you landed the fish? You haven't landed the fish until it's laying in the ice house, right? Like, if his head's in the hole, you haven't landed him yet. So with looking at it like that, I don't see how it's a legal catch. Like, I don't understand how that works, and I want him to have the record, because I think that's awesome. But if I was in that situation, and the hook came and did exactly what it did with Darren, I would be doing everything I could to get myself in the record books. Because I want to, it's going to promote my brand, so to speak, my brand that no one is aware of. All right, so you get to go on like all this national press and promote this giant fish. And the trolls are going to come out of the woodwork, and I would just enjoy the whole thing and just be like, whatever, you guys all saw it, I gave it to the DNR, and they gave it to me, so your beef is now with the DNR. But even through all that, you're still the guy that's caught the biggest fish on record in Minnesota history. That's a pretty... In Minnesota, that is the...
Right. But you're also the guy that caught to many, I'm not saying I agree with this.
Yeah.
To me, you're also the guy in Minnesota that caught the biggest fish with the hook outside the mouth.
Right, but I think my argument there would be, well, I let the DNR decide, and I can't believe they green-lighted this situation. It's not my fault. Like why wouldn't I submit it? Like, I didn't know the rules, and then they gave it to me, so awesome. Now, like, all you guys are minions, and I'm the king now, bow down to the king, So I don't know. Like I would have
See,
a
and that's why you're my friend. You know, you have such a great outlook on life.
Wait, are you telling me though that if you caught the fish the exact same way, it went down the exact same way Darren did, and then you get that fish in the house, you measure it, you do a girth, you do a length, you let it go, you pull up your phone, I'm assuming, and you're like, oh my god, I think that's the biggest fish that's ever been caught in Minnesota. Are you telling me that the next morning you're not advancing that situation at all? You're not putting out feelers to see if you can be in the record books?
Well, I think I would not put a video up showing that the fish was hooked outside the mouth.
That's a different question, and that was the problem. Like, you know, I don't understand why, if they just showed those stills, you know, those stills of those two holding the fish, there would be no controversy. You could show a still of the measurement. You could show a still of the girth.
Well, I know, but it also goes to his argument. He had nothing to hide. You know, right. Darren had nothing. I mean, if he had something to hide, he wouldn't have put the video up there.
No, right.
You know? He would have made his life way easier if he didn't put the video up there.
I know, but there's still that weird cut in the video, which makes it worse.
I know.
Did you ask him about that?
You know, after the interview, I was like, I forgot to ask him about this.
Because the stupid part about it is the cut doesn't cut out anything that matters, I don't think. Because you can see when the fish comes out of the water.
I personally think the reason he did that was just to minimize the amount of time on video that you see clearly that the hook is outside the mouth.
Right, because wasn't the battle like 2 hours or something? Wasn't it a 2-hour thing?
No, it was long, but I don't think it was that long.
I've seen 2 and 3 hours in the articles.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I guess that's possible.
Right, it keeps getting longer.
So you're saying that you, in Darren's situation, you would have submitted the fish for a record.
100%.
No, so what Darren says is there was a point they got it up to the ice, but the hole wasn't big enough. He saw it. This is his account.
Right.
Saw that the fish had it in his mouth.
Right.
Okay. They drill some more holes to try to get it through. It fights a little bit more. During that process, it unhooked itself, rehooked itself back into the snout area.
Right.
You're saying you would have submitted it.
Yeah. In that situation, I would say, and this is what makes it hard for people, that's not likely, just from my experience with sturgeon, because their mouths are so tough and it's a treble hook, and it's hard to imagine a treble hook moving, but it's entirely possible, because when you're banging it on ice, it's... You know, I pulled sturgeon through the ice that didn't even have a hook in them anymore, because at some point you get them through the ice and there's 2.5 feet of ice, and the fish is just locked in that hole. It doesn't have anywhere to go. It can't back up, you know. So,
right.
But yeah, I think I would. I for sure would. You know, the press continues. Like, you submit that, and then there's a period where, you know, I'm just looking for press. I'm looking for attention. And if they shot it down, I would still at least, you know, be relishing in the spotlight for 3 days and promoting our channel, and, you know. So I would look at it as a sort of a promotional opportunity. But that being said, I'd feel bad about it if I had lied about something. Not I'm saying Darren's lying, but if I knew it didn't go down exactly like I was saying, I don't think I could do that. But what I think Darren's doing is he's telling it like it happened. And so he's, you know, feeling a little bit of backlash, but like when you live in that online world, you need to expect to get kicked in the crotch over and over and over if something big happens, because everybody is going to want to knock you down. You know, it's like anybody. It's like the best guitar player or the best, you know, the best basketball player, football player, whatever it is. It's like all those guys, the internet is just there to bring everybody down a notch when you're having your best day, you know. It's a sad state of affairs, but that's what it is, you know.
I will say this. So I thought about it. So I had a long day of filming, okay, Major League Fishing today. And fishing was a bit slow, so I had to, you know, sometimes I go on a little vision quest while I'm filming, you know, in my mind.
In the Louisiana humidity, you had a vision quest?
Yeah. Also a great movie, by the way. Matthew Modine 80s movie, if you haven't seen it.
Amazing nude scene in there, wasn't there? Oh, no,
Probably.
I'm thinking of the wrestling movie with Rob Lowe, but carry on.
So, Vision Quest was a wrestling movie.
Oh, it was? What's the Rob Lowe one?
Yeah.
We're going to go off on a tangent, but what's the Rob Lowe one? It's like...
Well, that's a hockey movie.
Oh, that is a hockey movie.
What, right? Youngblood.
Yes.
Was it the Youngblood?
Yes, and
yeah.
my young blood was pumping like crazy while watching it. But go on. So did we get your... Are you going to...
What's that?
Are you going to explain exactly what you would do in this situation? Because I didn't believe you when you left the comment.
So I got to thinking more about it, okay? And if how Darren described happened, okay, he's telling 100% truth, okay, and that happened to me, but Darren wanted me to think of it in terms of like a bass or a walleye.
Right.
Okay. Let's say I'm fishing a tournament and a kayak tournament for smallmouth on the Mississippi, all right? That's why I had to think in these terms.
Yep.
All right, and I'm using a whopper plopper top water, and this smallmouth comes up and absolutely crushes it, okay? And it's obviously trying to eat it, and it's, got one of the trebles, let's say the front treble in its mouth, okay? And I'm fighting them, and all of a sudden the top treble gets dislodged, but the back treble gets hooked in like the top of the head, okay? Like right here.
Right.
I got to tell you, and I think Darren's going to like to hear this, I would be recording that as a catch in a kayak tournament. And so that actually is no different than really what Darren did.
Right, because
I consider that a fair catch because the smallmouth obviously came up and hit my top water,
Right.
And it was hooked at one point in the mouth. I saw it, then it. And Darren said he saw that, So
you're going against your you responded to somebody, I don't remember if it was on YouTube and Facebook, saying, well, you probably would not have brought that fish to the DNR.
Right.
So are you going against your previous comment?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I'd like to retract my last statement.
Or
my
your troll comment.
2 day old statement.
Right.
So, but I will say there's a stipulation here.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Now, if Darren never saw that fish, okay, if Darren never saw that fish hooked in the mouth,
right? Which this is really
if I hook that sturgeon, let's say I'm in Darren's shoes, and I hooked a sturgeon like that, okay?
Yeah.
But I never saw that fish hooked in the mouth, and it was hooked, like his sturgeon was hooked. I would not submit that fish. Right. I wouldn't submit it.
Yeah. Are there two scenarios? Like, if you're filming. See, like, if I'm filming,
no.
I'm just flushing everything out because you're filming. You're like, well, we're not gonna not put this on our show, and I'd be willing to.
Sure, but as a state record, to me, I need to know that fish went after it.
Right.
It ate it.
So you're saying if it was never at any point in the mouth.
Right.
Right.
I would not submit it.
And then and this is still hanging out there for me, and I don't know if it's been explained anywhere. Legally, like if you're looking at it from the position of the DNR, that fish is not landed and the hook is no longer in his mouth. So when they land it, it's not hooked in the mouth. So I don't even understand how that passed. Like, have you heard anybody explain that?
I don't understand what you're asking.
They landed the fish without the hook in the mouth. So
well, no, they didn't. Oh, right. It was right. Yeah, exactly, right.
So like legally from a DNR standpoint, I'm not talking about internet opinions here. Legally from the DNR standpoint, and I think this is part of the confusion is there's a gray area with how I don't think catch and release is any different than regular fishing records, where you actually get it to a scale. But if you don't land the fish with the hook in the mouth, doesn't that legally make it not a catch? You know, like let's say you were hooked a bass, the catch and release record bass, and the same thing happened that you described, that when you got it to the boat, it was hooked in the back of the head. Would the DNR say, well, that qualifies because it started out in his mouth?
Yes, I would say that if the DNR believes that the fish was trying to eat it,
right?
You know,
because we look through the regulations, because we were kind of like, well, I don't even know, like, what do they call snagging? And there wasn't a real definition of snagging, which is part of the issue too, because I don't remember. Do you remember how that read in the book? I was reading about it. Almost avoided mentioning snagging entirely.
It to me, if it's all about intentional snagging,
right,
is how I read it. And you can't intentionally snag fish. Darren's was unintentionally snagged, and
well, ice fishing,
and if you believe Darren, it was at one time hooked in the mouth. The fish actually ate it.
Right. And if you're ice fishing, you can't intentionally snag fish. I mean, snagging in the traditional sense,
right,
what you see people doing for paddlefish or whatever, is throwing out a lot of hooks, dragging it across a current, hoping you'll run into a giant fish that's in the way. But when you're ice fishing, you're just fishing. You're fishing down below.
We talked about that in the interview, So
right.
I think the DNR took that into consideration. They looked at the video. I mean, it's certified.
You know what we need to do maybe is get one of those DNR guys on and have them explain to us, because they really avoid the concept of snagging.
You really want to just keep this going and just keep Darren in a state of depression.
Well, I love how the hairs just keep getting split and split and split. But that's the only weird area for me. Like, I'm fine with Darren's story. Like, I'm fine with what he says, and I'm even happy for him.
Yeah, I am too. But people are upset that they feel like they're just, if it's a record, there needs to be strict standards, and that you just can't go along with believing.
Right.
That so that really rubs people, and I get that.
But
I'm also from the standpoint, I don't really care about records so much. I mean, dude,
right.
I don't know what the record fish, all the record fishes in Minnesota. That's not why I go fishing.
Right.
Seriously.
That being said, I'd like to catch a record, but.
Well, no, I'm not against it, but I do want to. I think we should wrap this up pretty soon.
Okay.
But I do want to just touch upon, there was a comment. This cracks me up, and I'm all about conservation and protecting fish, and treating the fish as well. But there's also a part of me that's like, fishing isn't really the best thing for a fish. I mean, you're hooking a fish in the mouth, in fighting, and it's like, I think some people they need to realize.
I mean, PETA got a hold of him. Did you see that?
Yeah.
PETA was like, I didn't see how, but they were honest.
I'm not going to. Yeah, there's one individual. I'm not going to name names here, but he made a comment to Darren. But listen to this, and it's just like, dude, maybe you should stop fishing then, because it's not like fishing is a positive experience for a fish.
Right. No, they're not.
So
they're not like, yeah. Did you see that human that just yanked my face? That was awesome.
Right. So here's a comment. Here's some of the hate that Darren got. Okay, and I think this is overboard. It's important to understand that one of the great things about the internet is that everybody has the ability to express themselves. one of the bad things about the internet is that everybody has the ability to express themselves.
Right.
So this might be a perfect example of this. This individual says, I'd like to point out you use treble hooks for a cartilaginous fish, meaning you're using the most harmful hooks available for a fish that has no bones. You snagged a fish older than Stillwater, Minnesota. In the snout, a sturgeon's most important sensory area. Okay? Flopped it on the ice and claimed a record. You, sir, are not a fair chase advocate, nor are you truly for the preservation of these fish. There are those of us that will not let you forget this. Enjoy your day, Mr. Troseth.
Okay,
so it's like...
I would argue that guy doesn't sound like a fisherman, though. Do you think that guy fishes?
I believe this gentleman does.
He just sounds like.
But you bring up he could be a plant. He could be a PETA plant. You know that's possible.
Can't you click on him and find out?
Yeah, I actually did. He looks like a fisherman. I think he's a fisherman. It's like
because he looks dull.
I see this in the muskie world too a little bit where. If you hold a muskie and wrong and you will be like just obliterated. It's like, well, I'm all for holding fish. Right? Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it's also like the best thing for a muskie is for you actually not to hook it.
Right. You just gotta leave it alone.
Just don't touch it. You shouldn't be fishing. That's the best thing for a muskie.
Right.
And the best thing for a sturgeon.
Or unhook it.
I'm not advocating that.
Yeah. Unhook it while it's still in the water.
My point is everybody just needs to chill out a bit, I think, in this whole issue.
But I would say, like, for some reason you assume that guy was a fisherman, but there was nothing in that thing that made me think he's a fisherman. He sounds like more of a guy that's just like, why are you torturing fish,
Yeah, but this individual posted on our comments as well, and I looked him up. He appears to be a fisherman.
That's confusing.
Yeah. It is, there's some very touchy-feely fishermen out there, okay? And they, and listen, I'm a person that loves animals, okay? And I'm saying this. I'm just saying that we have to have some perspective here that,
Can you help me out with something, though?
Okay.
So, like, why is a cartilaginous, as you say and he says, why is a cartilaginous fish, or a fish without bones, if you will, why is that a different thing than catching a fish with bones?
I have no idea, dude.
Pertaining to the hook, you know what I mean?
The only thing I could feel, like, it would be like, it's like, there's no bone, like, it would be less painful if you, like, it's more painful if you hook fleshy material. That's the only thing I can figure.
I guess. I mean, it seems like, it's got the same, you're still sticking it in the same old fish flesh, I don't know.
I don't know, dude. You know what? I have to get up at 4:45 and film
the
last of people bass fishing.
All right, so for our next show, we're going to interview a DNR guy and that guy, whoever that guy is.
Okay. Can you imagine?
Oh, my God.
Let the fireworks fly, baby.
All right, well, we should probably wrap this up. You have to get back to probably smacking cockroaches with a shoe or something from the looks of things behind you. You have a beautiful picture of flowers, so I'm glad we got to discuss this. I'm sick of winter, as is everybody. I don't know when the next time we're going to get to fish because the ice houses need to be pulled this weekend, I think. And there's 3 feet of snow on the ice. My trout streams are a mess. It's going to turn into flooded rivers after that. I don't know where we're going from here. So we're going to have to get together at some point and fish. But I think in the meantime, we're just going to be talking like this on the internet. So I'm still alive, in case anybody was wondering. Greg's been out there a little more than me, but we've got a cool muskie shoot coming. We've got a cool sturgeon shoot coming, actually, a big sturgeon. And you just put out a great
even though the season just closed.
Yeah. All right.
We're still gonna post it.
Yeah, it'll be coming at you. So don't give up on us, and everybody have a good night. Greg, have fun down there in Louisiana, and don't get killed.
And please remember, subscribe, and that's the best way to support us.
Absolutely. We're going to be throwing down some podcasts, and we've got a whole new sort of online, sort of interactive thing coming your way, too. So stick with us. We're going to have a fun summer, and everybody have a good night. Greg, I love you. I'll see you when I see you.
Sounds good, man.
Later.
Love you, too.